IELTS Speaking Question Types, Part 2, 2019. I've been an examiner for over 10 years, and during this time I've identified that there are 5 main types of questions or themes that get asked in Part 2 of your IELTS speaking test. I'm going to teach you what these 5 question types are so that you can prepare for them and be well prepared for your test and get a higher score. It's much easier to prepare for these 5 question types than it is to try and prepare for all the different topics that you hear about in the speaking test. Now, this is because there are over 200 different topics and they keep changing, so it's almost impossible to prepare for so many topics. So what I do instead is identify the 5 types of questions that get asked, or the 5 different themes is another way I talk about them. And basically these 5 types are people, places, things, activities, experiences. Almost every question that occurs in Part 2 of the test can be broken down into one of these question types or themes. So if you can be prepared for these 5 different types, you'll be prepared for your test. Please watch this video fully, right to the end, so you can not only understand what these 5 question types are, but how they fit together. At the end of the video, I show you how these 5 different question types are actually interlocked. And by preparing for one, you're actually preparing for the other kinds as well. Although there are many topics, we can categorize these topics into 5 main themes. Most of the questions are about a person, place, thing, activity, or experience. What I want to teach you in this video is how these different themes can then be interrelated. For instance, if we're talking about an activity, we can also be talking about who we do the activity with, a person, where we do the activity, a place, what we use to do the activity, a thing, and also our experience or feeling while doing this activity. Now, remember, you only have 1 minute to prepare your answer for Part 2. So you must use this time wisely and effectively. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to have enough ideas to talk for 2 minutes with just 1 minute of preparation time. Let's start by having a look at some instructions for a typical topic and analysing them. The examiner is going to hand you a book with a topic that looks very similar to the one you can see on your screen now. Note that the first word is always describe. You're always asked to describe. In this case, describe someone who is talkative. Now, the examiner only cares about this first sentence, describe someone who is talkative. Below that is some information to help you, to give you some ideas to talk about. It says you should say, but that doesn't mean you must say all of these following things. Really, it's you could say. So you could talk about who this person is. Most likely you're going to have to do that. You can talk about how you know this person. How did you meet? You could tell a story. You can talk about what this person likes to talk about, or what you like to talk about with this person. Then you can also discuss how you feel about this person. You're not limited to these points though. You're allowed to talk about other things, and this is what I want to teach you in this video. Let's have a look at how I'm planning to answer my question. First of all, I've decided on the person I'm going to talk about. I'm choosing my good friend John. You can see a picture of him there with a strange looking bird called a cockatoo. Now that I've decided on the person I'm going to talk about, I can start to brainstorm ideas. You need 3 or 4 main ideas that you can turn into paragraphs in order to have enough to talk about for 2 minutes. You can get these ideas from the topic card. You're not limited to the topic card. You can also come up with some of your own ideas. Generally, when we're speaking about people, we can talk about their appearance or what they look like, their personality. For instance, are they an extrovert, an outgoing person, or an introvert, a shy person? We can also move on to discuss some of their hobbies and interests. Once we've done our brainstorm, we can write down a plan. You can see my plan on the screen now. Who I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about my good friend John. Then I'm going to move on and talk about how I know him and how we grew up together. Next, I'm going to move on to talk about what he likes to talk about, which is his cockatoo, his bird, the white bird with the yellow feathers that you could see in the previous picture. Then I'm going to move on to his personality and talk about how he's an extrovert and how he's kind-hearted. Then I'll move on to his interests, about how he likes to party and go out for meals. You'll see I've actually got 5 points there. I probably won't get through all of these points, but note that the first one, who the person is, John, that's going to be really just one sentence. That's not something I can develop into a whole paragraph, whereas the next 4 ideas can all become paragraphs and give me plenty to talk about for 2 minutes. Now, let's say I use my plan about my good friend John to build a model answer. So I have this fantastic model answer about John. And if I get that topic in the test, I'm going to do really well. What I want you to realize is that you can use that same model answer that you've spent time on to answer other similar questions, especially other topics about people. Let's have a look at another 2 topics about people and see how we could use John to answer these questions. So, the first one, describe a childhood friend of yours. Again, I can talk about John because I've known him since I was a child. Even if I didn't, I could tell a small white lie. Let's say I met him in my 20s. I could just pretend in the test that I've known him since we were both children. And then the second topic there, describe a teenager you know. Well, again, I can talk about my good friend John and just pretend that he's still a teenager. So you can see, if you build a model answer about a person, you can then use that model answer to answer a lot of topics about people. You can use the same person to talk about many topics about people. However, it doesn't stop there. If we build a fantastic model answer about a person, we're going to be able to use parts of that to talk about some of the other topic themes. So really what I'm saying is our model answer about John could be used to talk about other types of questions. For instance, if we get asked about activities, we can talk about doing that activity with John. If we're asked a question about a place, then maybe we're in that place with John. If we're asked to talk about a thing, maybe that thing involves John. Maybe John gave it to me, or maybe I gave it to John. We can also talk about people when we have experiences. Let's start with a topic about a place and see how we could use part of our model answer regarding John to answer a topic about a place. So we can see the topic here. Describe a place where it was easy for you to study. And then we see the questions or the bullet points for this. Where it is, when you go there, what you study there. Now, I will add an extra point, who I go there with, and then I can talk about my good friend John, and I can describe him as being an extrovert and talk about how he has this white cockatoo, the bird that you saw in the earlier photo. So one of my paragraphs could be about who I go to this place with. Now, it doesn't matter whether who you go with is on the topic card or not. Remember, the examiner only cares about that first sentence. Describe a place where it was easy for you to study. So, first, I can describe that place. I can talk about why it was easy for me to study there. And maybe part of the reason why it was easy for me to study there is because I go there with my good friend John. Now, let's move on to a topic about a thing and see how we could talk about my good friend John again. So, the topic says, describe a time that a piece of equipment was broken. Then we can see the points on the card, what the equipment was, what the problem was, what you did after it was broken, and how you felt about it. I'm going to add another point, who broke it, and then I'm going to be able to talk about my good friend John again. I can talk about how he's an extrovert and also how he's kind-hearted and bought me a new one because he felt so bad about breaking the one that I had. Now let's move on to an activity, a topic about an activity. Describe a skill that took you a long time to learn. Then we've got what it was, when you learned it, why it took you so much time to learn, and how you felt about it. I'm adding an extra point, who helped you to learn, and guess who it was? Again, my good friend John. So again, I can talk about him being an extrovert, an outgoing person, talkative, and when I mention him being kind-hearted, I can talk about how he helped me. Now let's look at a question for an experience. Describe a happy experience you had before. You should say where you were, when it happened. And now here is a bullet point that allows us to directly talk about John, who you were with. It's on the card there. And I'll be able to talk about my good friend John. Now let's move on to the theme of places and some topics about places. If you look at the 3 topics below, you could actually give the same answer for all 3 topics. For all 3 topics, we could talk about a library. This is something I want you to learn. You don't need to come up with unique answers for every single question that you might be asked in the test. So, if we prepare a model answer about a library, we'll be able to use it for many questions regarding places. Let's look at the first one. Describe a quiet place you found. We can talk about a library. Libraries are usually quiet places. If we look at the second one, describe a building you like. You can talk about a library you like. If you've prepared a model answer about a library, Just make sure you say why you like it. What is it you like about it? And then the third one, describe a place where it was easy to study. Again, a library is a good choice. Now, remember my good friend John. We can also talk about John for these three topics. Let's look back at the first topic. Describe a quiet place you found. Even though it doesn't mention anything about a person, we can still talk about studying with John in this library. The second topic, describe a building you like. Again, we can talk about a library. We can talk about studying with John in this library. 3. The third topic, describe a place where it was easy to study. Again, we're going to talk about the library. Again, we can talk about studying there with John. Let's turn to the theme of things, and for this, imagine I've prepared a model answer about my mobile phone. Perhaps I've prepared to describe it, say what I use it for, and discuss some of the apps that I've downloaded onto it. Let's look at the first question. Describe something important you lost. The chances are you've lost a mobile phone at some point, even if it's only briefly. So you should be able to talk about a mobile phone here. If you're a very careful person and never lost a phone, you could always pretend that you did. So we should be able to use our model answer of our mobile phone to answer this question. You'll notice one of the bullet points, where you lost it. If you wanted, you could say you lost it in the library, and then you could use some of your model answer about the library. If you wanted, you could say you were with John and talk about John. Remember, he's kind-hearted. Maybe he offered to lend you his phone. Let's look at the next question. Describe the time when you received your first cell phone. For this question, we can directly use our mobile phone model answer. It mentions a cell phone. That's the same as a mobile phone or smartphone. In answering this question, we can also see 2 bullet points that will enable us to recycle other model answers we've prepared. Where you were, we can say in the library. Who gave you the cell phone? We can say that John gave it to us. Remember, he's kind-hearted. Maybe he bought a new one and gave us his old one. Let's look at the third question. Describe a time that a piece of equipment was broken. Again, you could talk about your mobile phone and when it got broken. If it didn't really happen, you can always tell a story about it. Make something up. Then we could again recycle our model answer about John. Maybe John broke it. We could say where it got broken. Maybe it was in the library. Maybe it dropped from the desk when we were studying. Let's turn to the theme of activities, and for this one, imagine that I've prepared a model answer about searching online. Let's see how we can use it to answer questions about activities. Looking at the first topic, describe an activity you do when you are alone in your free time. Well, we can talk about searching online. Maybe we like to research things. We can use our answer about the library because we can say we like to go to the library and search online. We can talk about our smartphone because we can say that we use our smartphone to do searches. I've crossed out John for this topic. We can't really talk about John. This is because it's an activity you do when you're alone. Let's look at the second topic. Describe a time that you looked for information from the internet. Well, this one, again, we can directly use our model answer about searching online. It's perfect for this topic. We can also use parts of other model answers. We can talk about where we search, which can be in the library. We can talk about John because we can talk about him helping us to search for information on the internet. So we can see we can use our model answer about searching online, part of our model answer about John, and part of our answer about the library. Oh, and also our smartphone. So we've got 4 model answers we can draw on for that topic. Let's look at the last one. Describe a skill that took you a long time to learn. Well, we can describe the process of learning how to search online. Now, it might seem relatively straightforward, but actually there could be some quite complex aspects to searching online, such as which types of search engines should we use? How should we enter search parameters using commands such as and, using speech marks? So we can use our topic about searching online to answer this topic. We can also talk about other aspects from other model answers we've produced. Who helped you? John. Where? In the library. And we can talk about our smartphone and learning how to search for information on our smartphone. The experience theme can be the most difficult, and it's certainly quite difficult to produce a model answer or even several model answers to cover the different types of questions that you might get. So what I want to show you here is how you can use parts of other topics from other themes that you've prepared to answer these questions. Okay, so we're going to look at these 3 questions that we have no model answers related to experiences to use for these, and look at how we can draw on some of the other model answers we might have prepared. So let's look at the first one. Describe a happy experience you had before. So we're going to start off and introduce what that happy experience is. Then, if we've planned it right, we pick a happy experience that occurred in the library because we see that bullet point where you were. So let's pick the library. Who you were with. Let's pick John. And now we can talk about John. So you might have to construct something about a happy experience to have at the start of this answer. After that, you can recycle some model answers that you've already prepared and use those in your response. So we can recycle the library, we can recycle John. So we're going to have a lot of things that we can talk about to answer this question. Let's look at the second one. Describe an occasion when you helped a person. So again, we're going to have to come up with helping a person. Just thinking something that's not on there, we could talk about helping someone to study or helping someone to learn how to search online. Then we could be recycling parts of those answers. But as I'm showing you on the screen, we can also talk about John because he could be the person we helped. We can also talk about being in the library because we could say that we helped John in the library. Let's look at the third topic. Describe an occasion when you were scared. This one might be difficult. You might think, gosh, that's a difficult topic. I'm not sure how I could speak about that for 2 minutes. Well, come up with a paragraph about being scared and maybe why you were scared. Then talk about where you were in the library. Talk about who you were with John. So now we already have a whole lot of language that we can recycle from previous model answers that we've built. We can recycle a paragraph about John. We can recycle a paragraph about the library. Then we probably only need one unique paragraph, which is to come up with the reason why we're scared, what it was we're scared of. That's what you're going to have to build for this answer. But you'll have a paragraph about John, you'll have a paragraph about the library. So we can see that when we're talking about an experience, we can talk about all the other themes. We can talk about an activity such as searching for information or studying. We can talk about a place we've prepared, such as the library. We can talk about a person we've prepared, John. We can also talk about things such as our smartphone. Maybe we need to use our smartphone as a result of the experience. So, even though there's about 160 different topics we may get on our test, we can make it easy on ourselves if we realize that many of these topics are interrelated. And we can cut down our preparation time and prepare more efficiently and effectively by realizing how these topics are interrelated. For instance, I prepare a model answer about my friend John. I can use that to answer many questions about people. I can use it to talk about places because I could be in that place with John. I can use it to talk about questions related to activities because I'm doing those activities with John. I can use it to talk about a thing because that thing got given to me by John, or I gave it to him, or he broke it. We can use our answer about John to talk about experiences because we could be having those experiences with John. We could be experiencing those happy times or boring times or scary times with John. So what I'm suggesting is instead of having to prepare 50 or 60 topics like many of you are doing, you can cut down this work and instead just try to prepare or memorize 2 or 3 topics for each theme. Prepare 2 or 3 answers about a person, 2 or 3 answers about a place, 2 or 3 activities, 2 or 3 things, 2 or 3 experiences, and then realize how all of these different themes and topics are interconnected and how we can recycle parts of one answer into another answer. This is the secret to preparing well for your part 2, and it's also going to result in better responses during your test. This is because if we prepare fewer topics, we're going to know them much better than if we try to prepare 50 or 60 topics. We're going to have them firmly in our mind. We're going to be able to express them fluently. We can make sure that we can pronounce the words correctly because we have fewer model answers. We can inject high-level vocabulary into these answers. So you can prepare well by preparing to talk about different themes and then by realizing the interconnection between these different themes. If you found this video useful, please subscribe to me. Also, I'm going to give you links at the end of this video to question types for part 1 of your test and question types for part 3 of your test. I hope you find them useful. Good luck for your studies. Study smarter, not harder.